Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning to everyone. It's great to see you. I always say good morning because I film at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on every Saturday. But I know a lot of you watch this at later times, so maybe I'll just start saying hello. We're going to get started here in a couple of seconds. Let everybody load in. Welcome. Good to see everybody. Good to see everybody. All right. Get all of the stuff ready here. All right. Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of Built to Exit with me, your humble host, Jason Cisneros. It is Saturday morning when we film this live. If you get a chance, if you're watching this on replay, you can always show up live. Love to hear from you. Love to hear what you're saying. I monitor all the comments, and you're surrounded by a bunch of other business owners just like you. That is the audience, business owners who have figured out that everybody exits, how matters. And so when you're thinking about how matters, you want to make sure that you're controlling that exit. And you don't want to have an involuntary exit, which is one where you are not choosing to go out of business, but you run out of cash. I've done that a few times. The second kind is dictated exit, where you may have a good business, but you don't have a lot of experience sitting down across the table from somebody who's a good buyer of businesses. I had that experience as well. What we talk about here is custom tailoring your exit, taking your control of your business so that you can exit, get your time back, and eventually take the biggest asset that most of us are ever going to own in our life to be able to prepare it, optimize it, get the deal that you want, get the amount of money that you need out of it for you to fund why we're all in business, which is to be free and to have choices in our life. So that is what this show is about. And I am Jason Cisneros. Wanted to say the last couple of weekends, we've been traveling like crazy across this beautiful country of ours. We've gotten to be at some amazing events from all the way from Arizona out to Virginia, down in Texas, all over the place in this country. I've got a couple more before the end of the year. I'll be over in Atlanta, Georgia. The weekend, it's an amazing event called The Forge, 12th, 13th. And I'll be down in Fort Lauderdale for a private event on December 6th. And the other one, The Forge, is December in Atlanta. So if you want to check that out, it's jasoncisneros.com. You can go to the events page and come and see me. Seems to be a wild surge of all of us wanting to hang out with each other again. And as you know, I'm very choosy about the events that I speak at and that I show up at. And we have a really, really great time. It's always wonderful to be able to see you, to be able to hug your neck, and for us to be able to break bread together in some instances. So welcome to those of you that are new. I know we have a lot of new followers of this content, and welcome back to my amazing, unbelievable friends that have been with me for years. Let me get this thing. Da, da, da. All right. So, what are we going to talk about today? So, what we're going to talk about today, it was an interesting concept as we start thinking about the end of the year, and a lot of people start talking about Black Friday. I think it's starting now right around Halloween or just before Halloween. We start to see Black Friday promotions, and so I got a little curious about that for us, and I found out something new. I probably shouldn't be new to me, but it is. And I found it interesting that Black Friday is called Black Friday because it signifies the first weekend. Think about this. Black Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving, signifies the very first time that a lot of retail businesses hit the black for the first time in the year. This is what completely blew me away, was that you're working all year. It's maddening enough for us as small business owners, small and mid-sized business owners, for us to look at how long it takes for us to get profitable. Like, we're paying taxes for a huge amount of the year, and then we've got to pay down bills, and we've got payroll to cover, and we've got all these things. And I was like, wow, these businesses wait until the first Friday after Thanksgiving, until they're actually profitable. That is bananas to me. So I just wanted to dig into it a little bit. I started getting curious about it, and I found out some pretty amazing stuff. Like, think about it. And whether you're a Black Friday a business, a retail, or you're running a plumbing company or a roofing company or whatever it is, the principle that we're going to be speaking about today is relevant, because when are you officially profitable for the year? That's a great question for you to ask. What that drives drives the question even a little bit deeper to say, do I know my numbers? And it's wild to me. Again, I'll go back to my first three. Sometimes it sounds like I'm being a little judgy or trying to shame people, but I want to let you understand, the only reason why I know and can speak on authority with the things that I speak on authority about is because I screwed them all up. I made the same mistakes. And so this one, the core principle of it, and we'll have some other takeaways here towards the end of the conversation. The core takeaway is that you've got to get to know your numbers. And one of the very first things that we do in our organization when we are prepping somebody for sale is we do a deep scan of financials, concentration risk, relationship to customers, financial clarity, a bunch of the stuff that's going on in the business. You can do yourself a real solid by just understanding you've got to know your numbers. If you're in real estate, if whatever business it is that you're running, if you understand the profitability and you understand how much you have to sell, then you can understand, okay, taxes are paid off in this day. My payroll's covered by this time. It gives you a real sense of clarity, which ultimately switches and gives you the opportunity to be more in control of your business. Now, we're here always talking about building to exit. And so you've got to, if you're building yourself to exit, which for a lot of you means I just want my time back. And for a lot of you, that means that I want to be able to sell this to somebody else so that I can take that money, diversify it, retire, whatever your outcome is, right? Or whatever your desired end game happens to be. So I dug into it, and what knowing your numbers can do. Right? All of us know one of the most famous failures in business was Toys R Us. I don't know about the rest of you, but I had a sort of an emotional. I used to love to take my kids and just run around Toys R Us, and we'd throw the football around, and the kids would jump on a bike and ride in the aisles. Yep, I was that dad. But I had a little bit of an emotional connection to it. And so when it went out of business, it was a real bummer, right? And so it stuck in my mind. And it was one of the things as I was doing my research that popped up as a real good example of Black Friday and what knowing your numbers can do. See, a lot of companies, they'll run their businesses, and as long as there's money in the bank, they're not really digging into the numbers, right? They're busy. They're like, oh my gosh, we got so much money. We have excess. We have more money in the bank than our bills for the month, blah, 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 blah. But not knowing them, there's some things that can start to show up in the underlying business that will get you later, right? We talked about involuntary exit. Involuntary exit is simply just when your company runs out of money. That's it. You have to close the doors. You have to go do something else. You have to figure out how to pay back the debts that you may have incurred. But knowing your numbers puts you in a perspective of you're actually driving the car down the freeway, and you can see what's ahead of you, right? Most people's financials and how they look at them are in the rear view. Think about your business. If you are reviewing your financials every month, which you should, If you're reviewing them, typically what happens is you hand it off to somebody who you think knows business better than you. You hand it off to a CPA or to your CFO or to to whoever is doing your books, right? And you hand that off to them, and by the 15th of the month, the next following month, you get a report. And that report, you look at it, all you do, really, most business owners, all they do is go, profit number, not realizing that that's not the measure of success, because profit can be an illusion, right? And so can operating cash flow. The one true measure is free cash flow. How much money can you take off the table without it affecting and impacting the ongoing operations of your business? And so think about this. You get that. It's 15 days into the next month. If you have a good bookkeeper, if you have your systems in place, and you take a look at that, and it's like driving your car with a rear view mirror, right? That's 45 days later from the beginning of the previous month. If you're looking at your financials every month, 15 days later, right? And so what that does is, I equate this a lot of times to, if a dog pees on the carpet, one of the things that you train them, you rub their nose in it, and they learn the lesson. Don't do that. You're sort of potty training them. And I equate the way that our financials traditionally are looked at to that dog having their nose rubbed in the carpet. But the way that we look at our financials, it's like taking the dog, they peed 45 days ago, and then you go rub their nose in it. It absolutely makes no sense. Okay. So we advocate very, very heavily for you to learn about 13-week rolling cash flow that projects your cash flow, your bills, payroll, all that stuff out into the future, 13 weeks ahead of you. So if something changes, you can modify on your way to it. I'm digging a little bit deeper into the actual strategies of how to deal with this. But what happened with that context that I've now given you, what happened with Toys R Us is that Black Friday showed up, right? And that's when they were expecting, they had, corporate, and they had their board, and they had everybody that were dealing with information that was coming at them through rose-colored glasses, or people there wasn't anybody that had their eye on the actual gas gauge to say, where are we? We can do this a lot in business. We understand, but they had their entire realm had missed a bunch of underlying information. Now, digging into it, I saw some, yes, maybe there was some people that were throwing up red flags that were ignored, but does that happen to us in our business as well? Do people throw up red flags and we just kind of ignore them because it's like, no, we got plenty of money in the bank. Have you seen our press, right? Did you hear the last customer tell us how great we were? Yeah, I'm not paying attention to those complaints that came in the mirror. I'm not paying any attention to, all of the things that are happening. And so what are those indicators that we ignore in our own business on a day-to-day basis, right? Something very, very important for us to be able to pay attention to. Toys R Us was no difference. It showed up, Black Friday showed up, and they did not do the sales that they were supposed to make. And guess what? It revealed the thing that Warren Buffett talks about, when the tide goes out, you find out who's swimming naked. It's one of my favorite analogies. And so the tide fell out, and all of a sudden the money that they were supposed to make to cover up all the sins of mismanagement and not thinking and strategy, the lack of strategy and all those kind of things showed up. And they're like, holy crap, all of these things are broken. And they didn't make the amount of money that they could to cover over those sins. And so guess what? They had an involuntary exit, right? Same thing happened with Lowe's during 2018. If you research the story of what happened, was, again, there was supposed to be this big rush on Black Friday. It didn't happen for the economy or for whatever the case may be. But what it did was it revealed that their C-suite had missed a ton of stuff on their website. It wasn't tested. Their e-commerce strategy was not covered. So again, these are big examples, big, massive, multi-million dollar mistakes that people make. But what does that mean for you? And how should we be looking at it as a business owner for us to approach our own Black Fridays in our life? First off, the first thing, and I didn't put this in my notes, but the first thing that I want you to pay attention to is that let's not have to wait to Black Friday, right? Just before. And I see this a lot. I'm going to do a little bit of a special episode. We're going to start promoting it here pretty soon, but how to plan for your next year. It's something I used to do almost every year, and it was wildly popular. And then for some reason, I just stopped doing it. But we're going to do a how to plan for next year, sort of free event for everybody coming up. But we're in November, and I'm talking to business owners all the time. I've been in front of, I don't know, 12 or 15,000 of y'all on stages in the last 2 or 3 months. And it's November, and you're just now starting to think about next year. And a lot of planning goes a little bit like this. Well, last year we got together right around December or beginning of January with the team, and we said we're going to go from 1 million to 2 million. And then we go, yeah, let's do that. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to make more sales, right? We might do a new ad campaign, blah, 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 blah. And then the next time you measure, not you, but next time that somebody measures is during the same time period, November, December, January of the next year. And you go, well, we didn't hit our $1 million increase. We only went up $200,000, but yay, we went up $200,000. And then you go, well, what are we going to do this year? Well, let's do $1 million. This is the planning level for most business owners, not you, because you're here, you're watching this message, but not you. You're going to plan specifically in 4 areas: sales and marketing, right? That's number 1. And that's really your relationship to your customer. It's more than sales and marketing. It's, do you have a referral program? Where do you have a local campaign? Your Facebook ads, whatever it is that happens to get you that top of the funnel attention for your business. How many of those need to show up for next year for you to do an additional $1 million? Then they drop down into maybe your proposal or your phone call methodology. And how many of those have to convert then into somebody who says yes? And your product lines, your product services, now you've got that number. How many of all of that, by the time you get to the end, how many of those things have to sequentially happen intentionally for you to be able to hit that $1 million increase in sales? That is responsible ownership. That is responsible planning. That is responsible strategy. Strategy has to turn into execution. If you don't have any strategy, what are you going to execute on? You're going to execute on what's been going on. You're in a wildly amazing perspective today. I've said wildly 3 or 4 times because I feel this way. But you're in this amazing opportunity while everybody's distracted, right? I equate this to, there was a story about a plane crash, and what they were doing was they were focused on getting the gauges, and they were dinging on the gauges with their fingers and whatnot. And they lost sight of the horizon and they crashed the plane. And it wasn't something that was catastrophic, but the captain of the plane and the entire crew was focused on trying to get these gauges working when they could have at least used the horizon to make sure that they didn't crash while they were trying to fix that problem. And I see so many people right now hyper focused on AI that the 80 other things that they need to be doing in their business are falling by the wayside. Right. And then on top of that, while they're hyper focused on AI, which is important, right? It is one of the 80 things that you have to be paying attention to. It's important. I'm not saying that AI, its development, how you can apply it, the profitability, all of those things. I'm not saying that that's not what we're supposed to be doing. But if you hyper focus on it, you're going to crash your business. If you hyper focus on AI, you're going to crash your business. Now, second part of utilizing AI is the big mistake I'm seeing for most companies is it's being used, as I've said about technology many times, it's being used to push you away further from the most valuable asset that you have, which is the immediate reaction and interaction and relationship that you have with your customers. Okay. So it's meant to go, oh, I don't have to do so much. My AI clone and my blah, 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 which people can still tell, right? They can still tell. And as I have realized, people are desperate for real. They're desperate to shake people's hands. They're desperate to be in each other's presence. They're desperate to deal with people who are real flaws and terrible in-person pictures, and they're desperate for it. This polished example of what's being built out there with AI right now does not reflect the deep-seated need for us to be able to interact with each other. So don't use AI. If you are using AI, don't hyper focus on it. Number one. Number two, don't use it to push you away from your customer. Use it to pull you closer to them, to be able to spend more time with them, either in conversation or in real life or in interactions, or asking them questions about how you're doing with your business. You're not a multinational business, right? You're not Amazon. You're not Microsoft. You are a small or mid-sized business. You need to understand that your competitive advantage over those larger companies is always going to come down to one word: relationship. Okay. Relationship to your specific avatar, to your specific customer base, who you are solving a specific outcome and problem for, right? For them. And you've fallen in love with that more than you've fallen in love with the AI craze and being popular and putting out stuff on Instagram and whatnot. It is, how close can I get to my ideal avatar, because I've already fallen in love with their outcome, and they desperately need my product or service, and I need to get closer to them, right? So that's my little bit of an my little bit of a left turn, that's right. So a little bit of a left turn for our conversation, but really, really important that as you head into next year, that you realize maybe I'm focusing a little bit too much on AI. Maybe I'm focusing a little bit too much on the weight and necessity of Facebook and Instagram and all those other kind of things. And if all I did for the next 12 months was hyper focus on solving my ideal customer's outcome better than anybody else, your company will thrive. Okay. Your company will thrive. Your numbers will go up. So, all right, let's get to some takeaways. All right. 3 things that I wanted you to take from today with this Black Friday conversation. It's coming up for all of us. The holidays are coming up. The other thing that's not in my notes: don't take your foot off the gas in November and December. Don't do it. We always put our foot on the gas during those 2 months, and that has for 20 years resulted in a massive Q1 for us, because while everybody else starts to kick off their shoes and starts to take their foot off the gas, we put our foot on the gas, and that made for an awesome Q1 in the following year, which obviously sets you up better for the outcome for the entire year. So let's talk about this. Operations enables sales, not the other way around. Operations enables sales. The back end of your business, right? And I'll give you an example from our own company. For 30 years now, I have been in one shape or other fixing businesses. I crashed 3 of my own businesses, and then I got into the turnaround game and became a turnaround specialist. And then I started buying my own businesses. I started selling, and then I figured out this custom tailored relationship: find the buyer and build the business for them as you've built for your target audience. I figured that part out. But on the other side of the equation, what we've been able to do in that 30 years is to be able to understand we're built to exit. That's the name of our company. Our objective is to help 600 business owners sell their business between $15 and $30 million. Some more. We're working on a $300 million deal right now. And some less. We're working on an $8 million deal, right? But for that business owner, 600 business owners to be able to sell their company for life-changing money so that they can meet their objective and their definition of sales. Now, how it's happening out there in the real world is that everybody these days is an M&A expert. I've been building operations for myself first, right? And then for other clients, and then back again for myself again, and then again for other people through the consulting firm. I've been building systems and processes on the back end of our company, the 30 plus people that work for Built to Exit, to be able to deliver when somebody says, yes, we want to build our company to exit. Right now, I've got a team and a machine, and the back end's already built. I've been doing it for 30 years. Right? What the opposite of that is somebody that all of a sudden, who was a life coach last week, went to a weekend seminar on how to do M&A, mergers and acquisitions, for those of you that don't know what that means. And they're like, now I'm a mergers and acquisitions expert, or I'm a consultant that was focused on numbers. Nothing against that. At least you're a consultant and at least you understand numbers. But at the end of the day, okay, well, M&A is hot and everybody wants to sell their company. I'm going to help them, blah, blah, blah. And now they go out and they get this amazing funnel and they get these amazing campaigns and they spend a bunch of money, and people come into them based on the promise of the marketing and the advertising, and they don't know what they're doing. That's why 95% of companies that ever put their company on the market to sell, less than 7% of them ever sell. That's because there are not enough competent, already built back ends in our industry to be able to deliver on the promise that their marketing is making. If you notice, we don't do any marketing. It's all word of mouth, or me being on stage, or me being on a podcast or whatever. We don't do any of that. Yet we're super, super busy because I built the back end for a lot of years to know how to do it for myself, and then for other people, and then for myself again, and then for other people. And by the way, currently my wife and I are still building and selling businesses outside of the operations of Built to Exit. Medical space, AI space, the cannabis space. We're in those businesses doing it as we speak. Okay. So that's just an example of how our operations was already in place and already delivering at a super high level based on the feedback. If you go to my LinkedIn, you go down, to the recommendations page, you can see it's that called due diligence. What does that look like for your business? Right? What does that look like for your business? Are you so focused on that sales number that you've forgotten what sales is? Sales isn't the delivery. Sales is a promise that your brand makes. Sales is a promise that you are making to your customer that when for the exchange of money, they are going to get that predictable outcome of which they trusted you with their money, right? Now, if you make that sale, that's great that you have sales coming in, but I see companies falling apart. There's a saying that I'm fairly well known for at this point that says that it's not mine. It came from somebody else as well, but that most companies die of indigestion, not starvation. In other words, they outsell their ability to keep the promise. They're out promising, not delivering, under delivering, pissing people off, ruining the brand. Your brand is a direct reflection of how well you keep the promise. Not only how well you keep the promise, but how well you keep the promise when something goes wrong, when something goes off book, when something goes off script. How well do you respond to that? Process and procedure exist to create maximum flexibility. When in that statement, what does that mean? That maximum flexibility is an opportunity when maybe somebody or something or a process drops the ball for a customer. That flexibility exists to say, well, we did it by the book and it just didn't work out. You go, flexibility, let me go back and fix that. Let me exceed your expectations. Oh, we dropped the ball. Oh, I made a mistake. Let's fix that and make it better. Okay? So operations enables sales. Never outsell your ability to be able to deliver. Now, obviously, there's ebbs and flows, and if you're running your numbers, sometimes you're going to a little bit outsell your ability to operate. But oh, I got to go hire this person, and I got to plug in this piece of AI. Now we can take that additional overflow of business as our business is growing. But you know that ahead of time because operations enables sales, not the other way around. Okay. Second point, moments like Black Friday expose whether you've built a business or just a marketing gimmick. Okay. It's just a little bit of a twist on my point number one is that when you have heavy sales, is that money that's coming into you, is it covering the sins of not having a good operational manager, having your cousin running operations, or you abdicating because it's just not something that you like to do? You like to be the face, you like to be the visionary, you like to be the blah, 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 right? I understand all of that. I am those things. I feel that way. But I drove myself into those of you that know me know or know my organization, know Carlos Chavez, my COO for 2 decades now. Right. And I had to put myself in his shoes because he's methodical thinking. He's a manager leader. He's somebody who thinks in those terms. And I had to put myself in that world, which I was miserable in, so that I could understand how he thought and so that my vision could be matched with reality and execution could actually happen. Okay. And so again, your sales, you might hit a sweet spot. You might, have a business where you don't have much competition. You might get lazy. You might, but if you're going to build a business to exit, and that's really the only reason why you should be building a business, is, to get your time back or whatever it is. You really, really need to make sure that your operations is dialed in. Okay. Now, parting thoughts. There's a saying out there, and I'm going to try to remember it, but it's like, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your preparation, right? Something like that. I always butcher it. But when I think about our conversation today, it's more like you don't rise to the level of your sales pitches, your funnels. You don't rise to the level of the promises that you're making in the marketplace, however that is that you're bringing in business. You fall to the level of your operations, right? And so as you're looking at AI, how does it better serve the customer? There's so many people that derive their first conversation and first thought process is based on how am I going to make more money? It's the wrong place to start. Making money in the first place is an after effect of solving somebody's problem. And if not, you're just running a Ponzi scheme, right? Yeah, I suckered a bunch of people to pay me a bunch of money. You can see it out there. I watch gurus do this shit all day long and twice on Sunday, right? Which is they make a bunch of promises and then you buy the stuff and you're so embarrassed that you got suckered by it. You don't say anything, but you go to the next guru and you go to the next guru and the next get rich quick scheme and all the blah, blah, blah. I did it. Again, no shame. I did it to the tunes of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I did it. And then one day I woke up and I said, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Number one, I'm going to start doing due diligence. Number two, I'm going to get my operations in place. Number three, my sales, if anything, should be, if anything, at the lowest level, should accurately depict the outcome of my product and or service. And if even better, it actually doesn't even, it doesn't do a good enough job of how operationally excellent we actually are. And we've suffered from this in my own business, but that's the best place for you to be, is for you to actually go, oh, I kind of knew what to expect. I wanted to build the exhibit, and then they get in and they encounter my team and the clarity and the control that they get back over there. And they start to beam with like, oh my God, even your marketing didn't well, which we don't do much of, right? But even your marketing can't describe the value that you add. That's where you want your business to be. So, no hype. And here's the takeaway. The last takeaway is that there's a word I heard first from Joe Callow, who's on our team, and that he said, the president of our company, has been with us for, over 12, 13 years at this point. And he used the word one day called hopium. That's always stuck with me as a funny word, but it's the drug that most business owners are running their company on. They just get a big old pile of opium and they chop it up. And I don't know how you do opium, but you chop it up and you sniff it up your nose and you go, whoa, it's the end of the year. And I'm going to sniff a bunch of opium. By next year, I'm going to double my sales. I'm going to expand into this product line. I'm going to hire this kind of person. I'm going to really dig into AI. I'm going to do those things. And you go, and you're hitting that all year long. And you get a hangover right around September, October, going, God, we're not even close to our numbers. Not only that, but we had a competitor move into town and they're kicking my ass. And, I've sold a whole bunch of stuff, but we haven't collected the AR on it. Right. And so you get a little bit of a hangover, and about November, we start sniffing that hopium again. And so I would much rather you go into next year sober. I would much rather that you prepare for next year sober. I would much rather that you spend time digging up data, which is so available to us these days, that you go into next year like a ninja, right? Like an executioner with a solid strategy. I'm going to help you guys do this if you pay attention, and we're going to put out some on the socials and whatnot. But I'm going to help you through that strategy phase. We're going to go back and do some old school stuff that we used to do, which we always do in my businesses, but I haven't done it for the public for probably 4 or 5 years at this point. But we'll do that. It'll be free. It'll be my gift to y'all, so that you head into next year with some strategy, so that you don't wake up, the first Friday after Thanksgiving broke, right? And go, oh, I hope this weekend works really well, or else we're not going to be profitable for the year. I want you to go into January 1st knowing that you're going to be profitable for the year, knowing when you're going to hit profitability, knowing when you're going to meet that operational cash flow number, knowing when you're going to actually be able to start pulling free cash flow off the table, knowing that you're going to have a tax strategy for your excess, knowing that you are 1 year closer to being built to exit, because everybody exits. How matters, right? How matters. It is so crucial for you to know and understand this. We've got some cool things that we're going to be rolling out. As I said before, I'm going to be in Florida. I'll be in Fort Lauderdale, a private event on the 6th of December, 11, 12, 13. I'll be in Atlanta for an event called The Forge. If you want to know where I'm at, come and see me. I've been having a blast hanging out with y'all in real life and breaking bread and having amazing meals till 2:00 in the morning. It's been a lot of fun. And next year is booked up. If you need me for your event, or you're thinking about putting on an event, just reach out to us, and see if we're available for your time frame. I just want to say, plan for a great new year. I know there's a lot of stuff up in the air. You never know what's going on with the government. You never know what's going on with taxes. You never know what's going on with AI or the next technology or that next level, of operations. But be specific, right? Spend time in your business. Spend time on your strategy. It's the greatest gift that any of us have ever been given. I know me, a nobody from nowhere, a poor kid from, that grew up with, terrible circumstances, was given the opportunity to become a better person, a better man, by honing and crafting my character and my integrity through this grindstone called a business. but it also availed me and my family the opportunity to be free, to be able to do the things that we care about with the people that we care about, and do things going into our life that we believe matters. I want the same for you, because if you don't have it, then eventually nobody's going to have it. We've got to protect this. We got to band together. Find your fellow small and mid-sized business owners. Please start developing relationships with other people. Please start doing business with each other. Avoid the large corporations and doing business with them as much as you possibly can. Drive business as much as you can to each other. Because if we lose this, next generation after us is going to be worse off. And we don't want to be the generation that does that. So that's it. I love y'all. I hope you have an amazing week. We'll be back here again next Saturday at the same exact time, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please share this show if you have business owners that you think need to hear this content and would benefit from it. Please share. That's part of it, right? I'm asking you guys to get to know each other, to help each other out. Don't think of 2026 as you have competition. Look in every area that you possibly can for collaboration. We need it more than ever. We've got to band together. There's 33 million of us. We do 60% of the GDP. We do 60% of the hiring. The 90% of the jobs that are out there are people working for us. It's up to us. And I hope you have an amazing week. Thank you for spending some time with me. I'm Jason Cisneros. This is Built to Exit podcast, and we'll see you next week. Peace.